Okay, we'll call to order the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting for June 29th, 2022. Has the attendance been so noted?
Yep.
Move for the approval of today's agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need the approval of the minutes from the May 12th, 2022 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question on the minutes. On page 3, row 5, I think it's just a typo or grammatical. It says like reserved funds, and I think it means reserve funds, right? I haven't got a copy in front of me, but. So the reserve funds to 100%?
Here.
Spend down reserve fund?
Levy 220 to spend down either at the reserved funds or the reserve fund.
Funds plural, yeah.
Yes.
Just wonder if we could adjust that just to be clear.
Yeah, can you point out what line, because I'm not seeing
About
it?
the fifth line down.
Yep.
Under
the
new
top
under new
paragraph.
business?
Under
Or
the top paragraph.
top paragraph, okay.
Says,
There'd be one on line 3 as well then.
yeah.
It's pretty, under the
Okay.
reserved funds or under the reserve fund, whichever.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So switch it to fund.
Yeah, it'd be,
Yeah, to 100% of the, and I don't know if it means to 100% of the estimated need. I wasn't quite sure what we were
well,
saying.
there'd be just two, they're gonna spend that down to cover those that are 100% covered, which would be all the participants at this point. Correct? Yeah,
Okay.
so with the correction of the Scribner's error, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, with the amended, I'll move that the minutes be approved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the adjusted minutes for May 12th, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved. We'll move on to the bank summary of assets and expense reports along with the quarterly bank statement summary.
So as of 5/31, the market value of the portfolio was about 166.9 million. It was a gain of about 110,000 from the 4/30 balance, which is much better than what we saw the month prior. And then we just had a few expenses, a couple edge row fees, and 3 class action handling fees. And then there's the quarterly bank statement summary. Let me know if you have any questions about that.
Look good to me, except for the change in value from the prior quarter.
That's good to see it leveling out at least.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the bank summary of assets and the quarterly bank statement.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept those reports. All those in, any discussion further? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the board administrator reports. I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me.
All right, I got a few.
Well, you would.
All right, in the packet, obviously went to the MAPERS conference and brought back a few notes. I got them typed up here, kind of the highlights of the points we went through. And then I know we talked before about creating a trustee handbook, and most of our documents that are listed there are on our website. There was only a handful that I didn't see on ours, and it'd be something to look at probably in the early part of 2023 to have everything gathered up and get on there. I think it'd be good for all of us to have access to those, obviously readily. I think the website's probably the best place to get a hold of those. And then at the bottom, the administrative calendar was one that they had talked about, and I kind of liked that idea, is that they said that a lot of these places will have a calendar that's accessible to all the board members where we can put like our policy reviews, and it kind of goes along with the rest of our best practice scorecard here, so we can see what's due for the month and then what would be due the next time period. So if we're doing it annually, if we're doing it every 5 years, so that kind of helps keep everybody on track, and it probably would help simplify things a little bit more for Lily. But as part of that, I was questioning on about halfway down, it says that there was a resolution index and then all prior legal opinions that were offered to the board. Do you have any idea how, if we currently track resolutions, Lily, or if Courtney or Gail passed anything on? Or if we just
I
look
am
back
not
to like the
sure.
minutes, or?
I am not sure. I can look into it for you. I know we do keep the legal opinions in a location. It's, half of it's in like a computer folder and the other half is in a paper folder. So we could
Yeah.
compile it all into like one spot, but.
Yeah, I think that would probably be pretty helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'd be willing to obviously help work on that. I don't think it's too hard to get them all in a PDF file and just make the link on our website. So,
Yeah.
and I'll get with Lily to show you, there was only
Yeah.
like 5, I think, that we didn't have access to.
Nice.
So, that kind of goes into that actuarial best practice scorecard that they handed out as well. So it's just a few things that kind of goes along with the calendar that we should be kind of reviewing on a regular basis, and some of the best practices that they recommend, and then obviously some of the common pitfalls that are on there. So I think it'd be worthwhile for us to take each one of those, and if we develop the calendar, to put them on there, and then as we review them, it just helps keep everything in order here. So I don't think there was anything else on that.
No, love the idea, and I think Courtney had already put together a list of all the policies and when they all expired.
Okay.
So that we knew when we needed to bring to the board, and
Review.
then you would bring them to the board whenever it was due, right? Whatever the
Right,
next one
yeah,
was.
when they were due, yeah. I do
Yeah.
have that list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it would just help if
That's a nice one,
we
yeah.
all knew which one was coming up, so we
Mm-hmm.
could,
study it and.
yeah,
get
another
ready,
set of eyes, and obviously just get a little bit ahead of it, so.
Yeah,
And then down on, the next one down, the actuarial standard of practice number 4, they said that our actuarial studies will start showing this LD-ROM coming up for reports after February 15th of '23. It's just another metric that they're using that's going to show the unfunded liability as being higher as the way that they're making their calculations, but it's not reported to anybody outside of the plan, so it's not going to GASB or anything like that. So that will be on there, something for us to look at. And then they had discussed, which I thought was interesting, if we're looking into kind of how we phase in gains and losses, if we had to increase our contributions, there were some plans that were phasing in contributions over a 2 to 4 year period to try and minimize the spike in a contribution rate. So not that we've had a,
It's the same thing as we do with our gains and losses.
yep. So it would just help kind of smooth that out. So I don't think we've obviously had any spikes, but it would be something to look at if there was going to be a large contribution increase, would be to possibly spread that out over a period, probably shorter than the 4 year, but.
Yeah, because normally the contribution rate, those have been minimal increases, and this last year looks like it was a decrease, or will be. So I'm not sure how big an effect that would really have, but it's something to look at.
Yeah,
But like you say,
thinking more for down the road, if we were seeing a large one
You know.
that was coming down, that we could try and phase that in over a period to kind of minimize the impact. So, yep, and then the back just goes back to that best practice scorecard. So, like I said, I'd be more than willing to help out, either get the calendar going or help get documents on there, however that looks, so,
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah.
I know all the resolutions that we handle at the board meetings are going to be attached to the minutes. So we
Correct.
do have them there, but many years ago, we had a firm come in and they put together a binder. But that was, oh my God. I was a young guy at that time. It was like in the 1980s, I believe it was, or early 1990s. But that would be a guide, if it's still downstairs in the files.
It's probably somewhere.
I can show you where I had it. And then we have the report of your expenses, last thing.
I attached that in case anyone else wanted to see it, since Tammy and Stan signed off on it.
Okay, is that it, Jake?
That's all I have, yes.
Lily probably has some stuff here.
A few things. So we'll start with Chris. He was the sole nomination for the police representative. So his new term is July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2026. We have new guidelines in place, so we do need to make a motion for you guys to approve his reappointment, if you would like to do that.
Would that not be the city commission? They are the ones who approve the appointments to the board. I know they have
So,
specific
yeah.
resolutions for Ed and myself as being citizens.
So they appointed this new board called the City's Board Committee. So I went back and forth with the city manager's office on this, and they said they're trying to streamline all the boards so that we do everything the same. So they want the board, the individual boards, to approve each member first with a motion, and then they go through and they put it on the commission agenda after the fact. So it's a board to monitor the boards.
It does seem strange that we have that power, quote unquote.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and I reiterated to them that for these two specifically, they're elected, so it's, but they still want to do this as like a standard.
It's kind of like we're
process.
recommending them to the board then, really, like a board of commission.
Yeah,
Yeah, that form that I had to fill out
yeah.
doesn't
And
really apply for
it
myself
doesn't,
and
but they,
Jake.
yeah, so that's the other thing, is every time one of you gets reappointed, you're going to have to fill out an application as well. So Chris had to do that, too.
Seeing as-
Guess I would entertain a motion to keep Chris on the board.
Yeah, seeing as Chris was the only nomination,
Yes, give him our
let's take a
blessing.
motion to, what do we want to say, reappoint
Yeah.
Chris Rabbit as the police representative to the Police and Fire Retirement System Board.
Yeah, for a 4-year, for the next 4-year term, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a
Congratulations.
motion and a second. Is there any discussion as to why we would not want to have him on? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Chris. We didn't overthrow the department over there in their selection.
So continuing on, the Mapers Fall Conference registration is open. It's September 17th through the 20th. I believe it's in Mackinac. Looks like there are 3 of you that are eligible to participate. I know Tammy's out of town. So Stan and Chris, if you're interested, just let me know. And then we also have some new police officers. So on 5/9, we hired Caleb Skaggs and Madison Logston. 5/16, we hired Nicholas Albaran. 6/12, we hired Pamela Fickle, Paul Green, Nicholas Cooper, Joshua Street, and Trevor Scott. And then Brian Sturdivant, the fire chief, was terminated on 4/29. We sent him a letter regarding his options for withdrawal on 5/12. Derek Malone, a fire captain, also retired effective 5/26. Tracy Walker, fire equipment operator, entered the drop effective 3/11. There will be a resolution below that we'll need to approve for him. And then we're going to return to the Silverman Edge Row. We left it off last time that they needed to pay off all of the legal fees that we acquired, and that has happened. Laura paid the fees in full on 5/13. So then on 5/23 and 24 respectively, I sent out letters to both Laura and Scott letting them know what their new benefit amounts were going to be. And their resolution is below as well. So that is the next section, are the two resolutions that need approval.
I'll make a motion for Tracy Walker's drop.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Tracy Walker getting into the drop program. And a second, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, so that is approved.
I just want to clarify something on Silverman's real quick. It's showing an eligible domestic relations order, but he's currently retired, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So would that be just a domestic relations order at this point? Because they're currently already eligible.
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that that's what the legal document is called, is an EDRO form.
Okay. I don't want to muck it up too much. I thought that an effective domestic relations order would be for once you were eligible to draw benefits. So it would be looking
Gotcha,
in the
I see what you
future
mean.
where a domestic relations order would have been in effect when you could already
Right.
draw benefits. I don't think it
Yeah.
makes, I think it's semantics at this point.
It's probably because the whole process started before he was officially retired, is my guess, but
Okay.
don't quote me on that.
And this went through the attorney anyway, so.
Yeah, this is from them.
Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the EDRO for Silverman.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That is approved. Move on to new business. We have a proposed budget for the year 22-23 in front of us for the retirement system. I would assume that when this was put together, we kind of looked at the expenses, how they run for the last several years.
Yep, so Courtney and I sat down and we did a budget versus actual for the prior 3 years and based it off of that and averaging everything that's played out since then. So if you have further questions, I have the spreadsheet that I can pull up, or I have it pulled up on the big screen.
Well, it'd be similar to like the budget spreadsheets that were used when the city puts its budget together with prior year's history, similar to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, this starts July 1st, right?
yes, yes.
Fiscal year, yeah.
Any questions on this? If not, I would call for a motion to approve this budget.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask
Yes.
one question?
Sure.
How did the investment management fees of $450,000 compare to prior year? And I'm asking this because I know we changed the way we do investments, and Jeremy may speak to this as well, might be able to help us with this as well, but have the management fees changed much, given our new structure, moving away from the mutual funds?
I don't know if this is on or not, but I made a similar observation. I'd be happy to look at these offline. Because in short, they will change because there's only now one investment manager that will be charging the cash account of Battle Creek. All of the other investments are now mutual fund based, and so we're going to be looking at net fee performance that don't actually charge.
Yeah, so we should see some favorability. And so if this is based kind of on last year, I'm hoping we'll see favorability. I'm still willing to move forward and approve it, but we may want to take a look at that just to understand.
Yeah, I will say that they've actually gone down significantly, the investment fees, because we've like compiled the portfolio, so we don't have as many outstanding bank accounts. So if you look at, I pulled it up here.
And that happened about halfway through the fiscal year, right?
Yeah, so as of right now, for this fiscal year, we've spent about $328,000, and we budgeted $652,000 last year. So we're well underneath that amount. The year before that, we spent over $900,000 on
Okay.
it, so it's
we should
gone
expect
down.
more like 300 then full year?
We're hoping.
Say less than that. I think it's as simple as if you look at page 9 of your PDF, there was the expense summary that Lily had provided that had that unit sales fee, remember that? You could essentially take that fee and multiply it by 4, and that could give you a pretty, you just had it up there.
Was I close? Dang it. There we go.
There you go. Actually, this is just a little bit further.
Was it one more? There we go. From,
That top unit sales fee, which is the only separate account manager now, I don't want to say multiply by 4, you probably want to mark it down, right? But 50,000 times 4, I think is fair, so 200,000, something like that.
Okay.
And I don't want that to be misleading, there's still investment fees, they're just paid differently in the mutual funds.
Yeah, they don't come through in a budget like this, they just get deducted from your earnings. Yeah. Yep. So I'm okay, it's only 200,000 different roughly, so we can pass it as it is, I'm fine with that. I don't even know if we need to come back and do an amended, I think we're probably close enough, but,
Yeah, I would think that budgets are basically guidelines anyway. They're subject to change at any point in time. Well, I think what we probably should do at the December meeting is review the budget, see where we stand, and make any adjustments at that time.
And to be fair, I think through this, we don't anticipate recommending another separate account manager, but it's possible, right? So you almost have a budget for that potential, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So.
Thought we were budgeting for the huge rebound we were going to see.
Trust me.
Okay. So did we have a motion and a second?
Not yet, but
the motion, okay.
go ahead.
I'd move to approve the budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget for 2022, 2023. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And hearing nothing, it passes. Linda, give us some information on the actuarial evaluation. I'm not sure that one's
Not even
on.
sure it's on. No.
I think it is.
I don't have any idea. Now you can hear me.
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, look out. So, thank you, Lily, very much. She put together a great comparison of the 3 actuarial firms that we reached out to for prices and information about turnaround time and additional services that were available. So, thank you very much, Lily. I'm kind of using her worksheet to look around to compare GRS, who is the current actuary, Gabriel Roeder-Smith, to Watkins Ross is the second firm, and Kavanaugh McDonald was the third one. So we got kind of estimates and quotes from them. And for the cost to the plan for the work that typically the actuary does, they're very close in comparison, the 3 firms are. GRS ends up being the lowest, which was kind of surprising to us, but they include 10 calculations, benefit calculations a year in with their quote of prices, whereas the other firms separately charge for those. And based on the average number of calculations that we've had done over the last 5 years, I use that number to kind of compare apples to apples. So it's looking at like about $19,000 for Gabriel Roeder. And so based upon, cost, that is the lowest of the 3. Lily and I had a little bit of conversation about I would recommend to the board, and it's certainly your decision, but I would recommend staying with them, but we would like to reach out to them to talk about turnaround times, because that has been a difficult issue for us. And if they're unable to, in this next year, if we stay with Gabriel Roeder, if they're unable to improve their turnaround time, we may want to go through this exercise again next year and look and see what else is out there. And because, you know, the other two firms specify turnaround times that are, you know, better than what we're seeing now. So maybe that's an option. So that's what I would say is, would be my recommendation, is to stay with the current firm. They are completing the experience study now, so we will have it ready for the new actuarial that will start July 1st.
Perhaps we could look at, when we award the contract, would be to just put a time limit in the contract.
And I don't know that we necessarily award a contract. Well, you know, we're not really saying we want you to do this for the next 5 years. It's always been a year-to-year kind of thing with GRS. And I just wouldn't see that changing. That leaves our options, leaves your options open.
Right. So I know that, I think it was last meeting, or either last or the one before, when we granted the experience study to GRS in an amount not to exceed. Could we tag on a timeline to that? Say, because we said not to exceed X dollar amount and to be completed within this time frame.
Are you talking about the turnaround times that we've had difficulty with?
Yeah, I think we could just tag that in there when we're submitting it back to them and say that, you know, we expect it in this time frame for this amount of money.
In the past, it's just always been that they would have a date that they needed the information, and generally, they would come out and give the report, maybe in January, but generally in February. I mean, it was, in the 30-some years I was in the office down there, we never requested a specific timeline. It was just, that's the way it flowed.
Time it took.
But I don't see any reason why we couldn't put a request in to say, hey, we need this by a certain date for internal purposes.
And we talk to them about that when we do the census report to them. You know, we need information back from you in November in order to finish up our audit for the year, because there's a lot of facts and figures that go into the audit report that come from the actuarial report. So
Well, that's a perfect reason to request that, hey, the report has to be done by the 1st of November.
right,
That way it helps you, helps us also.
right. I'm just, yeah. And I'm not sure they're aware that we've been, you know, looking at options, but we certainly will let them know if you decide to go forward with GRS. We'll let them know that we've done this, and, you know, we're watching the turnaround times, and here's our expectation, to your point, Jake, and see what happens.
Hey, could you share the other comparisons we have? So $19,000 for GRS. What are your other two quotes?
So for Watkins Ross, it would come out to be $19,490. For Kavanaugh McDonald, $19,200. So they were all very close.
Yeah, I'm going to say they're all close, because if you think about the amount of assets we manage, if anybody can get us any better, this, you know, $200 to $400, $200 to $500 is not significant.
Right.
So, and we've had trouble with GRS with turnaround times. What is it that, what else can you share about the three quotes that lead you to go with GRS? To recommend that?
There's systems in place that we're familiar with as far as how to submit the census data. We have a point of contact that is responsive to us. She at least, you know, she returns our calls. Not that we would expect that either of the other firms would be any different. Kavanaugh McDonald was a name given to us by our current auditor So we really have no working knowledge of that particular firm. Watkins Ross does our other post-employment benefits, actuarial studies, so we have a working relationship with them. But, GRS has done the City of Battle Creek actuarial reports for the police and fire pension for as long as I've been here, for 22 years.
Since 1963, they were the, I
And
think I mentioned before, other meetings, that they are the one actuarial firm that does the majority of the Act 345 pensions. That's their niche. That's what they specialized in. But they also do other pension funds, say like
Right.
Kalamazoo is not part of 345, but they do have their pension fund for their police and fire, as does Detroit, which are not at
Getting
345s.
calculations included in our price already. And do you have a ballpark of what an average calculation would run if we had to run them through another company?
so Watkins Ross says $290 per calculation. Kavanaugh McDonald is $300 each. So,
So that
Multiply
would-
that by 10 and we're,
Would
Well-
that be on
well,
addition to the 19,000?
no, those are what I included. I averaged,
Oh,
like I
right,
said,
okay.
over the last 5 years, how many did we do? I multiplied it by 290 for Watkins Ross and by 300 for Kavanaugh to do the three total
okay.
dollars that I gave to you.
okay,
So those are already included in those numbers.
okay, thanks.
Yeah. The other thing, to your point, Ed, GRS has all the historical data for the city of Battle Creek. And one of the things that we've been talking about that police and fire active participants right now do not receive is an annual participation statement that says, here's your years of service, here's your estimated final average compensation, here would be your benefit calculation, and to do that kind of report on an annual basis for each active participant. The non-police and fire, our MERS participants, get that every year. And it kind of keeps it in everybody's foremind, okay, well, this is the benefit that I'm accumulating and how valuable it is. And so we got prices from all three firms for that particular service as well. And they're all, kind of close. Let me see if I can find my number here. Kavanaugh McDonald was very expensive for that particular service. But GRS said they would do it for $2,600 and provide PDFs for each active participant for the year, for each year. And Watkins Ross would do it for $2,350. But GRS would have all of that, that background information already. There's another reason, I don't want to say it's because it's simple, but they do already have that information.
Yeah, Watkins Ross would have to get all that.
Would we be able to provide that to them? So we
would.
have it.
We would, yes, we do.
Okay.
We do have all of that.
Because I guess I do appreciate the ease and not upsetting the apple cart, but I also realize that it feels like they're taking our business for granted when you think about the report that we got in person. This is Ed's opinion. You guys can concur or dissent. But I felt like they take our business for granted, and they hadn't done their homework. They weren't ready to answer questions, and they didn't, frankly, have very good answers for some of our questions. So my instinct is that we should look into a potential change, even if there are some switching costs. I think that I'm also open to the possibility that maybe GRS is a great firm. They do more than anybody else, but we don't have the best person working on our business, and I'd be open to that as well as another option.
As far as seeing if they have another person they could appoint to our account
Correct, yeah.
to service our account.
Yep, that's correct. To say we're not satisfied.
Yeah,
and-
the presentation was a little hit and miss, giving them the benefit of the doubt there. Yeah, because, in the past, we've had some people that you ask them a question, they've got the answer. It all depends on the person that they've got assigned the account. I mean, Judy Kermans, who's now running that office, she had our account at one time, and she covered things beautifully. And Alan Sonnenstein, who had done it for a number of years when I first came on, yeah, he was sharper in attack. I think it depends on the person. I don't know, maybe that fellow hadn't done too many presentations. You know, I'm not defending him, I'm just saying.
And I don't think that was the first time he has been before this board
I couldn't
to
remember.
talk about the actuarial report. Certainly something we can talk with GRS about, and see what are the other options as far as someone to come and talk before this board that's gonna know what's going on and be able to field questions.
And I'm going to go beyond that, if I could, Mr. Chairman. So beyond just the presentation, I don't think the numbers behind it, at least not the defense this person could provide and explain. You know, I think the one example that sticks in my mind is a question you asked, Jake, about why have they got the folks here, if they need to retire at age 55, why do we have assumptions in there for people that are there to work further? I think that was do you remember that?
Yes.
You know, just simple things like that where they didn't build something that reflected our experience. And it's like, okay, we've got some things I think that are real numbers issues, you know, where they're not doing the best job for us that they could. So I don't think it's just the presentation.
Yeah, they didn't take into consideration the 25 and out for, you know, for the officers and firefighters.
And do you recall if in, you know, the benefits provision part of the report, did it say, it does note that it's 25 and out though, right? I'm pretty sure
they're aware of it.
Does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, yeah,
But if their
okay.
their
yeah,
forward
understand.
calculations don't reflect that, then the numbers aren't going to be as accurate as they could be.
I mean, it's mandatory at 65, and way back in the day, I remember police officers and some of the firefighters, I mean, they worked for 40-some years.
Yeah, so I guess I honestly just don't have confidence in the numbers we're looking at, which is why I either would like to switch or get basically a second set of eyes on this. I think is really important for us, and I'm not willing to continue on with where we are with GRS. I think that's the wrong call for us.
I think that if we were to come back and talk about this and make maybe a final decision, if your next meeting is going to be around the 18th of July, that still leaves us enough time to get the census in and get stuff, should be able enough time to get the census turned around by whichever firm we decide to go with to get reports back in time for the audit. And we can maybe address some of those questions with our GRS representative and say, are you sure you're including the 25 and out? Is there someone else that can come prepared to report to the board? How do you feel about that? Or would you rather make a decision today?
I think that with, like Linda said, with her recommendation of a pre-discussion with leadership at GRS, listen, this is what we've seen, this is what we don't like, and this is what we expect to come out of this. And we will be watching, along with the historical aspect of what GRS can draw, and using this as a final exam, essentially. If they don't meet the grade that we expect from them, then, all right, we're taking our business elsewhere. This is kind of your final shot at keeping our business.
And the other thing, Ed, I will say is, you know, we have a lot of discussion with our financial auditors about the numbers that come on the GASB report for the police and fire pension. And we've all been very comfortable with the numbers that we see, and there's been no red flags about the 25 and out kind of being included in the calculation, but I agree, we can kind of put them on notice, so to speak, and say, we need these things addressed. It's certainly up to the board.
I would say, I think that you should bring it to their attention and we can talk over it and make the decision next meeting. And that way, just to see what the response is on the questions asked. And then go from there. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we bring it to their attention, kind of see what their response is, and I like the fact that we've done business with them for so long, and this will kind of see whether they're willing to change or not. And like you say, we're not in a contract with them, so if it's next time around, if it's not better, it kind of solidifies the fact that it is time to change, so. But I don't have hard feelings in either way, so whatever we come to consensus on, I'm good with. But I like Tammy's point to probably push this off to the next one and see.
I kind of like the idea, talk to them
Okay,
and see what comes out of that, and at the next meeting, not sure we'll get it done by the 18th. Maybe the following week,
get what done by the 18th?
next meeting.
Oh, okay,
We'll,
okay,
we'll discuss that later, but,
okay.
Yeah, so I think I'm fine with that. I think I'd wonder what message we want to send, or how specific we can be, because one thing I would like to send is we're not satisfied with the service, that we haven't found that they have a good command of their numbers, as described to us. We've asked questions, we haven't gotten clear answers, we haven't gotten the right answers sometimes. So my thought is, I would say I've lost confidence in the person that has presented to us the last couple of times. I don't feel like he is the person we want managing our business. And I assume he's doing more than just presenting. I assume he's also the one kind of managing that, or?
it's amazing. They have teams. This is the information. You put it in, it goes into the computer, and it calculates a lot of stuff.
And we have a contact person that we deal with, on a regular basis. If we have questions, how should we put this in the census, or, where are we with the numbers? The woman we deal with is in Minnesota. And I think the gentleman who came and spoke to you is from the east side of the state of Michigan.
Southfield.
Right, so he doesn't necessarily, at least to my knowledge, work on our account. He takes, the report, and he comes and he talks with you in kind of generalities without really knowing the intricate details. And some of that may be COVID-related, that they're not traveling, because I believe that the woman from Minnesota has come in the past to present to the board. She's the one with her hands in it, and probably could do a much better job of fielding your questions than someone who is just picking up the report and saying, this is our standard report. And
Yeah, so that makes sense. If they can come back with a solution, but I'd want to communicate strongly that we're not satisfied.
Yep.
Really concerned.
okay.
Now, so for that conversation, Linda, is that you that would be having that conversation?
Lily and I
Lily?
would together, yes, and probably Aaron as well.
Would it be irregular or out of line if Ed were to join that meeting? If that's something,
Yeah, I don't mind you taking it. I'd be happy to join if you want me to, but I'm sure you can articulate it. I think you're clear on,
I feel like we can. How about we'll let you all know. We'll set up a meeting with GRS to have that conversation. And if anybody wants to join us on the conference call, we'd be happy to have you with us.
okay, thank you. That's a
Okay.
good thought, Chris. Thanks,
Okay.
Chris.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I guess we take a motion to table this till the next meeting, until we get some questions answered or clarifications made with the firm.
I'll make a
And their
motion.
marching orders.
I'll make a motion that we table the decision.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to table the actuarial evaluation to the July meeting. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll give you some work to do, Linda. Jeremy, Cap Trust, it's your turn in the ring.
To adjust this back up, Linda, if you're okay with it. The microphone's working now. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you.
Jeremy, can I have a tablet?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's try to keep you in the dark. Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm like a mushroom, keep me in the dark, and I'm not going to say what they feed me.
So we will go over, and it was alluded to, May was a bit more of a positive month from a capital market perspective. We'll talk about why. I will also foreshadow what's happened in the majority of June. Not to bring the mood down, but June has been a more difficult month again. We'll look at the current portfolio update as of the end of May, and then talk about any July action items that we may have. So I will just on your iPad skip to page 2, which gives a market review, and again, this is through the end of May. If you look on that chart on the right, you'll see the May year-to-date, or I should say the month-to-date numbers. So the first 4 rows essentially identify different stock indices, with large cap stocks having a slight positive, international stocks being up about 0.75% for the month, and then emerging market stocks also being positive. I always like to talk about emerging market stocks because we talked about how small of an allocation that the retirement system has, which has been a more difficult environment in general. Bonds were also positive, and that was a big assist to the retirement system. Again, keeping in mind with 45% bonds, it's been a very, very unique environment because when you look at the next row, year to date through the end of May, bonds have continued to have a struggle. And the reason that is interest rates have continued to rise. In fact, the Fed recently announced another fairly substantial rate hike of 0.75%. When that occurs, bond prices fall. We'll continue to see, say, for a long-term investor or a long-term pension plan, increasing rates help some of these investment managers because they're not having to take as much risk in order to get long-term yields, but in the short term, it is painful because bond prices fall. Staying on that year-to-date number, you can see U.S. large cap stocks, again, although slightly positive for May, down 12.76%. U.S. small cap stocks being down that much more. International stocks up a little, I should say down a little bit less, down 11.34. And you can see the 1, 3, and 5-year numbers. So what are we seeing driving these returns more recently in May and so far through June? Obviously, the Russian war in Ukraine has continued. That's continued to put pressures on a lot of inflationary goods, such as petroleum and fertilizers. And beyond the Russian and Ukraine war, we're just seeing inflationary pressures here in the U.S. as well. Now, a lot of that is because of pent-up demand from fiscal stimulus and obviously the COVID environment due to, for a long time, a lack of demand for travel and spending. Now that's really came back fourfold. So we think consumer sentiment and spending is a good thing, but the Fed has a very slippery slope to contain that in order to control inflation, but yet not put the global economy into a recession. We've also seen, real estate be in the negative the last couple months, whether it's new home sales, and that brings concerns about, rising mortgage rates. Are people going to continue to spend and continue that demand? And that ties into the commercial and real estate space as well. So obviously, the next meeting we'll have end of June numbers, so we'll get more of a quarter-to-date performance, and then traditionally, your August meeting, we'll be able to have the attribution report. So how does that tie to the portfolio? We'll just turn ahead to page 3. And you can see the total portfolio number. Again, this is as of the end of May at $166,989,215. When we just skip ahead to the next page, I'm focusing on the bottom right, where it shows the asset allocation and the pie charts on the left. Again, no required rebalancing. Stocks, bonds, and cash really remain in that 5% target. Plus, there is some pretty substantial contributions during the month of May as well. From a performance standpoint, I'll just move on to pages 5 and 6. So again, if you look on all the way to the left, fixed income was a positive performer, and that's for the first month in quite a while, but still has the struggles year to date. And then you turn to page 6, you'll see more of the equity managers. Value substantially continues to outperform growth. And again, these are details we traditionally get in with you more in our quarterly meeting, but sectors like energy from a high demand of oil and financials from rising interest rates have outperformed sectors like consumer discretionary and technology. So if you look all the way to the bottom for the month-to-date return, added another 0.39%. And that brings the year-to-date return down 11.35. Again, very unique environment, not because of the stock correction per se, but because of the bonds and how they have not, on an overall basis within the United States, held up as well as they have historically. So I will pause there and see if there's any questions. I will just very briefly flip back to page 3. The second line down, you see Earnest Partners. We talked about this last meeting. In fact, it was reflected in the minutes, how there's 4,374 that remains with that manager. We did bring a letter today from Loomis Sales that'll essentially just transfer that over to them. They hold it in a separate holding account and they sell it when it's most beneficial due to the nature of the bond. So that was an item we've been working on with them and Earnest, and that'll be all set to go. All right. Any questions for me on the retirement portfolio? All right, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, can I ask one quick question, Jeremy? Just on slide 2, where you show 3 years and 5 years growth, those are all annualized numbers, right?
Yeah, great question, Ed. They are annualized.
Okay, thanks. I guess I just make an observation, Mr. Chairman. When you look at some of the big drops, like the large cap being down 13% year to date, it's been growing 13% a year over the past 5 years. So we essentially went back 1 year. But, you know, trend-wise, I like where this has been going, even though this has been a terrible start to the year. But at least I can see, you know, it's not overwhelming all of our past gains.
No.
Just a portion of them. So I just wanted to observe that for the committee.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think anytime you tune into the media, they don't focus as much on 2019, 2020, 2021 were substantially higher than what we've seen historically on average, both from a stock return and a bond return standpoint. 2022 is clearly regressed back to the mean, but I want to remind the board that, you know, at least every other year, the S&P 500 has what we'd call an intra-year correction of 15% or more. We don't try to rationalize because it's not emotionally easy for any investor to see it, but when we look at the 3, 5, and really even the 10-year number that's not on here, it puts a little bit more proof into a long-term investor. So,
Yeah, and I just think about some of the people who may have money in the pension system and be thinking, hey, I'm going to get paid someday. They get nervous by seeing this. I mean, I'd want them to know that, hey, this is, as you look at this long term, this is all part of the regular cycle, and stay calm. Doesn't mean you should pull back on stocks right now. In fact, you absolutely shouldn't, because as stocks come down, this means they're probably going to go back up again. So not the time to pull out.
and a lot of analysts are now projecting, because valuations are more what we'd say fair versus what we might have saw 8 to 9 months ago, increased earnings for 22 and 23 because of that still pent-up demand. But again, there's a lot of factors that play into that economically. So
I can remember back when, was it Black Friday hit? And the market just got destroyed. And that was one of the things that, that's back when old Max Goodwin, the bond stock, kind of oversaw our investments for us, and we could only be 10% in stocks, and majority of it was bonds. And I asked for his guidance, because he'd had, Christ, 60 years experience under his belt when he was still working our account. And he says, just write it out. You know, as President Bush would say, stay the course.
Stay the course.
Okay. Public comment. Hearing nothing, I guess no one's out there on the call list. Next meeting. We're looking at the 18th. I will be out of town the 11th through the 24th. And incommunicado.
What about the 25th or 26th?
I'm unavailable.
you're unavailable?
I'm in a training that week.
The only thing to do would be throw it up the tail end of next week.
What are the implications, if we didn't meet till our August meeting, what are the implications on the actuarial piece? Because what decision do we have to make?
Well, we have to decide if we're gonna go with a different firm. There's a lot of probably setup that needs to happen. Everybody's got a different portal for entry of census data. You know, right now, we have the GRS stuff and we drop in the new numbers and we put in the new information. So staff-wise and time for staff to accommodate a change in an actuary, sooner is better, of course.
Yep, August would probably be too late to do it comfortably, to feel like we're on track.
I would feel pressure.
Yep. And I don't want to do that then. So you're going 11th through the 24th, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm
And
not-
Jake's gone the next week,
I'm
the
gonna be
25th
out
to the
of-
29th. Yeah.
out of town and out in the woods.
Okay. So another option would be to wait till the August meeting and just say, we're going to stick with GRS this year, but we're going to look for improvements, saying we're going to change next year if we don't see them this year. That would give plenty of time for the change.
And what I can say is, when Lily and I talk to the people from GRS, if we're not getting, you know, that we want to do whatever we can to make this right for you, then maybe we send an email out to the board and we say, here's what we're finding. And I don't know if we can, I think we could change without having a meeting. And I think if you all would be able to weigh in. I hear Stan saying he's incommunicado from the.
Yeah, I'll have no computer service or
Okay.
anything. No.
But if we could, you know, do something the 25th or 26th of July. Jake,
Yeah,
are you
my-
still available for email?
Yes, yep, I'll be in town in training,
Okay,
so I can
okay,
communicate that way.
okay.
We'll do the 25th then, knowing that we can,
I could do the 26th, 25th.
26th, fine.
25th is bad, yeah. What's you, Tammy?
26 is good for me.
Email.
Available by email. Yeah.
This is good, Lily?
Yep.
It looks like Dory and I are both out, but we by all means can send our investment materials on time, and then obviously that'll be available as like the quarterly report will be the big one next month, so. But totally up to the board, I'm just looking at schedules here.
is that week bad for you?
It is.
If we didn't have the actuarial item dangling in front of us, we'd just move on to August, but,
Linda, when do you expect that conversation to happen with GRS?
We could try it tomorrow, for that matter.
I mean, if that happened, say, by end of next week, or you're gone, Stan, I'm sorry, you said you're gone when? 14th?
11th.
11th, okay. I mean, if that conversation happened and didn't go well, if we had a special meeting sometime like the 6th, 7th, or 8th, if we had to, whether that's even a Zoom meeting, if we had to do it that way? I mean, to have that, is that possible?
I think you're up against making public notices of meeting changes at that point, because that's like a week out, and
I don't think we're allowed to do a Zoom meeting, right? We'd have to be in person. I think
I
they've got
believe
a
it
rule
has to
now
be in
that
person, yeah.
we're back to in person, right? Have you heard that?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Then maybe the best course of action is to say, let's go forward with GRS. Lily and I will have a conversation with them, and again, if we get indication that, you know, yeah, they're not going to change their ways or accommodate us, then we'll be back in touch with the board and we can see what other direction we can go.
Yeah.
Even if we just had a single item to resolve on the 6th, would that work? I mean, probably be in and out of here in 5 minutes, 10. But then you got the notice.
I still think you're up against it, because now you're holding an official meeting with, it's 1 week from today. I'd say we just pursue going with GRS, the phone call like we talked about, and then still go with the 26th. Obviously, I'm not going to be here, but like Jeremy said, I think the big one's the quarterly report, so I don't see why, I don't think we'd be missing a whole lot if he sent the information over and we could look through it.
And if you see anything that is earth-shattering and make suggestions for possible changes, I don't see that coming right away. That was something that we could probably even do at the September meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind the board, typically if we see something earth-shattering, we don't even need to wait for a monthly board meeting. We'd typically email you, and we've done that before when a money market fund was concerning us there in early 2020. So just as a reminder to put you at ease a little on that. So, and I
Okay.
didn't want to talk you out of the last week of July. I could just see schedules. So, yeah.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing, Stan, is we don't need a meeting then in July unless Linda comes back with something that's concerning, then we could meet in the 26th just to make a decision, because that would give us enough time for public notice. And
Sounds good.
so I think that's what everybody's thinking, right?
I'm good with that.
So do we need to amend our previous motion to table the GRS until next?
Well, it's still tabled, it can be brought
New motion,
back.
move forward?
You could say, go forward in GRS unless there are indications that we're not going to be able to work with them to achieve the goals that the board wants.
How do we want to word this?
Yeah, I think you have to amend it. Because I think we voted to table it, so I think you need to amend it to say that pending the phone call and the consultation, unless something,
If it's satisfying, yeah.
yeah, then we'll pursue forward, and if not, then we'll table it too, which would then be the end of July.
If that's the way you want to word it.
So I think it's if the,
Okay, first we'll go back into new business and address the actuarial valuation. I guess the motion would be that the board will wait until there's conversation with Gabriel Roeder by city staff. If they are accepting some guidelines that we would wish to place on them, that we would move forward and continue for an additional year with Gabriel Roeder. If not, we will have a meeting in July on the 26th. Does that suit it?
sounds good. The only thing I'd add is at the discretion of a city revenue director. Yeah. You know, so if she's satisfied with the GRS's response, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Linda would steer us wrong. Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the amendment to the motion.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Should we look at August calendars in light of all this for our August meeting?
We'll get back to that one. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. July is a possible meeting. I don't have my August calendar, but that should be fairly well open.
I will say the next meeting is scheduled for August 15th, and I am not here that day.
I'm not available either. I could go back to the 8th or 9th.
I'd be good with either of those.
Is that good for you?
Let's see, that is not a great day for me. Could we do later in the week? Like, oh, could we do the Tuesday? Actually, I have a pretty bad week, but Tuesday works.
Tuesday the 9th?
Yeah.
Tuesday the 9th works for me.
August the 9th, unless we hear different.
At the same time? 1:30?
1:30.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that concludes our order of business. Thank everybody. I think it was a good discussion.
Thank you, Linda.